You have to be willing. This is easily glossed over and very often not nearly emphasized enough. You have to be willing. One does not realize mind over matter when one is an unwilling participant. Many different approaches can be taken when one is trying to break down the conditioning that we have ingrained into ourselves. But none of these approaches will be successful if one is not willful of realizing it. And it takes more than just an intellectual affirmation that one is willing. More thinking isn't what's going to get the job done. The internal dialogue and constant chatter of the consciousness isn't conducive towards increasing willfulness. The thinking mind always looks towards the reasons for why not. And that's understandable, since the thinking mind uses reason to navigate everything. And reason does not allow room for anything that would seem to be unreasonable. This is what is known as the logic box, and the addiction to the known. Common sense is good, but it is only applicable to a framework. The framework from which you are trying to expand beyond the borders. So reordering the attention starts here, in removing mental blockades that prevent willfulness, which in turn suspend certainty and belief, which in turn create the atmosphere wherein what's unreasonable, illogical, and nonsensical can grow wings and take flight. So this is key to remember. It isn't a matter of adding anything additional. It is a matter of removal. I can't do it. It's impossible. There's just no way it can be done. Are all self-disempowering mental blockades that impede our breakthrough. But thinking the opposite is not what's going to facilitate a realization either. I can do it. It's possible. And there is a way it can be done. While nice as a motivating mantra to keep our eye on the ball, isn't what removes the obstructions. And that's a common mistake that is constantly made, trying to use the tools of disempowerment to free ourselves. The thinking mind isn't where the realization takes place. This is about relaxing and quieting down the conscious mind so that the subconscious mind can have more freedom to maneuver. Once the yoke of the thinking mind has been subdued, the willingness of the subconscious mind can be allowed to find and express itself, having found some modicum of stability, free from the burden of the thinking dictator that wants to control everything. This has been shown to be the case with hypnosis, and in fact is central to the technique. Despite gimmicky sideshows and Hollywood depictions, hypnosis can't have success with the unwilling. That's why someone can't be made to do something against their free will if the suggestion isn't in accord with their instincts. You can't force someone against their free will to be a Manchurian candidate with hypnosis. But you also couldn't necessarily have success with beneficial suggestions if the conscious mind is still too heavily convinced otherwise. Hypnosis is all about relaxing the conscious mind, so as to allow the subconscious mind the possibility to consider suggestions. And it is in this twilight zone area, so to speak, where the impossibilities of reason could manifest. The monk that can turn off his pain at will is doing so willingly, with his subconscious mind. The miracle cure that whisked away a dying man's terminal illness was done not so much by a healer, but by the dying man's willingness and the power of the subconscious mind. It's not the power of belief, but the suspension of belief that allows these seemingly impossible events to occur. Sometimes one has to fool themselves into it. We've all heard of the placebo effect, wherein a patient is given the suggestion that a drug or treatment will be beneficial, and it indeed becomes beneficial, but not for any substantial properties of the drug or treatment itself. So if the benefit is not from any inherent characteristic, then what exactly is bestowing the results? If you are told that a special pill made from rare ingredients from Southeast Asia will cure your ailment, and you are indeed cured, but all that was given to you was a water pill, to what is the cure attributed? Willfulness of the subconscious mind. It's not that we make it work through our belief in it. It's that we suspend belief and let our subconscious mind run with a suggestion. But it doesn't always have to be the case that we fool ourselves. With more practice and utilization of directing the attention, we can begin to do these things willingly and willfully. It becomes less and less difficult the more one has experience relaxing the conscious mind and letting go of the self-defeating mental obstacles that prevent us from doing so. It's allowing oneself to step outside of the conditioning, and from this standpoint, gaining the outside perspective necessary to begin to dismantle and deconstruct the conditioning. This is the way towards lucidity, of which we are only in the beginning steps. And how do I manage to gauge that? How am I able to pinpoint where humanity is in relation to progress with the subconscious mind? It's pretty simple. We are still pre-lucidity. If our current state of consciousness has been and continues to be superficial, this means we have not challenged our conditioning and have instead just hit cruise control and are now riding on autopilot. And of course, the way to remain in this rut is to dismiss any inclination to challenge the conditioning as something foolish or selfish. Do you see how hard the conditioning has you locked into place? It even has fail-safes in place in the rare case that you might think to challenge it. Yeah, seeking to break free from the conditioning is just more conditioning. It's just more desire and attachments. And it's impossible anyway. See how that works? Mental blockades that try to keep you in the box. Stop thinking inside the box, and don't even think outside the box. There is no box, so stop thinking about it. It isn't thinking that is going to bridge the gap anyway. Acquiring the willingness to let go of the conditioning isn't a desire, even though it may seem to appear as such. Desires are only applicable to aspects that are prospective attachments to the illusory persona, and hence bring suffering. For the persona must suffer the loss of such attachments. Unlearning, subtraction, deconstruction, and detachment do not feed desire, for they are avenues that are contrary to grasping and avoidance. Unless, of course, one is not really letting go, and instead is getting attached to false detachment. But this isn't detachment in the true sense of the practice. It is the desire to avoid, disguised as detachment. And I am not asking you to avoid desire or to avoid the conditioning. I am asking you to take it head on. Then slowly let go of it. And I say slowly let go because it is a gradual process. And as you gradually let go, you gradually become more lucid. And then gradually the mind is able to reorder itself above matter, which is already the case. It's just forgotten it and become a slave to its own projections. With the mind now fully aware that its rightful natural place is over matter, that indeed it is the creator of the projected reality, and with the willingness to let this new order replace the old conditioning with a new description of reality, the impossible becomes possible. With increased lucidity comes the clear seeing that all reality is a creation of the mind, and as such, the only limitations encountered are self-imposed. This is where you can heal yourself. This is where you can regulate pain. This is where you can experience extrasensory perception and, dare I say, levitate. Oh, Sage, come on. Levitate? That's crazy and irrational. No one can levitate. It's a physical impossibility. Indeed. And this is exactly why you fail.